We need to have a real conversation about parenting kids in America, not the kind where we sit in a circle and talk about gentle vibrations or some kind of woke therapy session. If you want that, there are plenty other channels for that. What we're talking about is survival. Now, the world out there, it's a place that is actively trying to grind down your kids, break your spirit, and dismantle your family. Now, your kids don't need a buddy. They don't need a roommate who pays the Wi Fi bill. No, here's what they really need. They need a bull elephant. Now, I'm just not speaking from theory. My wife and I have raised two boys who are now in their mid 20s. And as a dad, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I readily admit this. I didn't get every detail perfect. In fact, I made many mistakes. Every father does. But let me share with you this the core elements, being that respected leader, that bull elephant, my kids, I've done that. So for those of you still in the thick of raising kids, I'm giving you this from a place of street cred. Now, let me share with you a legendary story from Africa that every father needs to hear. Years back, there was a group of young male elephants. They were teenagers, basically, a gang of teenagers. And they were out of control. They were pillaging villages, they're tearing down homes, they're trampling crops, they were actually killing people. But the villagers were desperate. So they got together. They're trying to figure out what to do with these wild young teenagers. Didn't it sound familiar? And they were asking the question, how do we stop these wild young elephants who are out of control? And an older and a wiser elder, he stepped up and he said this, what we need to do is we need to put in an older, mature male inside the herd. Because if we do that, the herd will follow him and the rampage will end. Well, guess what? They brought in one big, older, mature, massive bull elephant. The effect was immediate. As soon as the mature male stepped into their midst, what happened? The young elephants immediately settled down. The destruction stopped. Here's what they needed. They needed the strength, the wisdom, and the masculine energy of the bull. So you see, in the elephant herd, the leader isn't the one winning a popularity contest. It's the bull. He's the size, he's the strength, and the unshakable gravity that pulls the entire herd through the most dangerous territory on earth. He isn't just a father, he's the geography of their lives. So if you're a dad, this is your job description, to be a bull elephant. So to be that bull elephant, you need three things that are absolutely non-negotiables, what I call the three Ps. The first one is this: presence. Now, look, being home isn't the same as being there. Now, presence is putting your phone down when they're talking to you. It's also having the backbone to make them put their phone down when you have something to say. It's making eye contact. It's being so anchored in their world that they know, without a shadow of a doubt, you are the one thing in this world and this life that is immovable. Now, here's a reality check. When there's a void where a father should be, guess what's going to happen? Kids are going to fill in with garbage, social media, toxic influencers, substances. They aren't really looking for trouble, I don't think. They're just looking for a distraction from the empty chair that so many fathers leave behind. So, fathers, your presence is irreplaceable. Show up for your kids every single day. The second P is this: it's power. Now, let me be clear about this. I'm not talking about being a tyrant or a loudmouth. That's immaturity. They've seen enough of that. Real power isn't about volume, it's about influence and weight. It's about strength to look your kid in the eye and say this: no, you aren't going to that party. And then this is the key: not flinching when they hate you for the next 10 minutes, the next hour, the next day. Your kids don't actually want a father who folds just the second they throw a tantrum. There's no respect in that. They don't want a yes man. See, when you wield your power with integrity, you're really not controlling them at all. You're teaching them that power is responsibility. You're showing them how to stand like a wall between the people they love and the things that want to hurt them. Now, a word to the wives and moms here, and I want to pause and speak directly to the women watching. When your husband steps up and he exhibits that masculine energy, when he's being the bull elephant and disciplining your kids, you have to give him the floor. Now, in that moment, you probably need to step away, maybe even leave the room. I would suggest that. I know your instinct is to move in with that feminine, nurturing energy, but in the framework of a raw discipline, this is not what the kids need at that moment. They need to feel the weight of the bull elephant. Now, if you crowd that space, if you dilute his authority and confuse that boundary, it's going to decimate the family dynamic and the discipline which your kids need. So if you step back and allow that masculine power to be inserted with integrity, you're helping him build a fortress of boundaries around your children. It's temporarily, I know, uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable moment that pays off in a lifetime of maturity. Give the bull elephant the space to work. Listen what author and professor Dr. Jordan Peterson says about this very thing.
I've seen within my own extended family where every time the father attempted to involve himself in the discipline, let's say, which is really the attention and regulation of his son, his wife would, in small ways and not so small, interfere in a rather punitive manner, treating her husband as if.
Now, notice what he says there in a punitive manner, because the kids, they will play you off one against the other. And when the feminine energy comes in, which we need, I love the feminine energy, but it's there for nurturing. The bull elephant, the masculine energy, is there for discipline. And they need to feel that weight because it's the most loving thing for them. He goes on to say, and he begins to really share about what it does, sort of the negative side of when that happens, when the feminine energy overtakes the male and masculine energy.
His interaction, his involvement was inappropriate, ignorant, and dangerous, something like that combination. And my experience with that has been that what men usually do in that situation is pull away. Yeah. And that's really devastating for the kids. I've seen.
So true. When the feminine energy tries to come and displace the masculine energy, it brings destruction when you're raising kids. So let's look at our third P, persuasive leadership. Honestly, this is where most of us blow it. This isn't about barking orders from the recliner. It's about wisdom. A bull elephant leads the herd to water because the herd trusts him to find it. Don't just tell them how to live, show them. When you handle a crisis with grace, when you own your own mistakes, and even apologize, when you treat their mother with actual honor, that is leading. I remember specifically when my boys were teenagers, trying to exert their own immature version of manhood. Every now and then, they would try to push a boundary and get disrespectful with their mother. In other words, mouth off to their mom. I wasn't going to let that slide for a second. I'd walk into that room, look them in the eye, and I would say, listen to me on this. What you just said was completely disrespectful to your mother. But more importantly, now here's the key here. She is my wife. And you will not speak to my wife that way ever. Before you ever came along, she was my wife, my one and only. And then I would hit them with this line, with this reality check. Would I let any other man in this entire world speak to your mother like that? You know what I would do. And I would ask them that question, and they would say, no, Father, not at all. Then you don't do it either. Now that is persuasive leadership of the bull elephant. You're setting the gold standard for them of how they should treat their future wives. You're teaching them that a man protects the dignity of his wife. You're walking through the jungle with them, showing them where the traps are, not just pointing out the map from the sidelines. You're engaging them in real time, what it's like to respect and to honor their mother and their father, which, by the way, is the fifth commandment, the 10 commandments. It's a valuable value to God himself. And it's very important in our role to be the bull elephant, as a bull elephant to our children and to our families. Now I want to get personal here for a moment, and I want to tell you a story about my youngest son. Now overall, he was a good kid growing up. But one night in high school, he made a critical decision that landed him exactly where no father wants his son to be, the county jail. He didn't come home that night. He wasn't answering his phone. I was worried sick. I didn't know where he was at. In fact, I was wondering, is he laying in a ditch somewhere? Did he get in a wreck? Is he at a hospital? I didn't know where he was at. He was way past curfew. Then around midnight, his older brother walked through the door and dropped the bomb on me. He said, "Levi has been arrested." Now, I spent that night in a blender of emotions, furious, disappointed, and honestly, I wanted to wring his neck. The thought even ran through my mind, am I going to go in there and try to rescue him right now? And I thought, no, now I know he's safe. He's going to stay there in the county jail all night long. So the next morning at 11 a.m., I drove to pick him up. But before I got there, I called my own father, the ultimate bull elephant of our herd. I needed his masculine perspective before I lost my cool. So he settled me down with two sentences. He said to the son, "Don't take him home yet. Bring him to my house first." Now, you have to understand who my father is. He's a retired Dallas police officer and the former lieutenant commander of the Dallas SWAT team. I loved this idea. I knew that facing Grandpa's disappointment and his brand of tough bull elephant wisdom, it would be a heavier weight than any jail cell. So I dropped my young son off at the bull elephant's house. And I left him there for 3 hours until I got a text back from my father and say, "You can pick him up." Now, when I went back to pick him up, the change in his countenance was night and day. His entire mood had shifted. That 3-hour masculine energy session with the bull laid the groundwork for everything that I needed to do next as his father. My son had made really a stupid young man mistake. We've all done it. I've done it many times. But that day, he learned from the leader of the herd that you may make some mistakes in your life, but it's how you pick yourself back up. How do you learn from that mistake and go forward and mature? Now, I'm proud to say that was a watershed moment for my young son. That was the day that my boy started turning into a young man. Proud to say he went on to Texas A&M University, recently graduated there several years ago from architectural school. And today he is a young man that his mother and I are incredibly proud of. And told me years later, he said, "Hey, I didn't really need a sermon or lecture, and I thought I may get that. Dad, you were right. I just needed to be near the bull elephants, you and Grandpa. I needed to feel the weight of accountability, the sternness and discipline and the love and the directness to really get in my face. It's what has made me a man today." Well, the bottom line is this: fathers, be that man. Be the immovable presence. Be the unwavering power. Be the leader in your family that your family is starving for, your kids are starving for. The world is waiting for you to step up. Your kids are begging for it. Be the bull elephant. Well, this talk has helped you in any way, if it's encouraged you in any way, I'd be honored if you would support our channel by subscribing, liking this video, and leaving your comments below. Until next time, my friends, faith and honor.